Therapy Chat Podcast, episode 275.
This is the Therapy Chat Podcast with Laura Reagan, LCSWC. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. And now, here's your host, Laura Reagan, LCSWC.
Hi, welcome back to Therapy Chat. I'm your host, Laura Reagan, and today I'm very pleased to be bringing you an interview with an author and teacher who is known around the world for her book, Inner Alchemy, which has recently been re-released. My guest today is Zulma Reyo. In our conversation today, you are going to hear Zulma talk about her work, her journey, and how we can find that still small voice within us, which I think is very fitting for the times we're living in. So I hope you will enjoy listening to my conversation with Zulma Reyo. Let's dive right in. And I do have a little bit of news for you all. There's a new thing coming on the horizon from me. I'm starting a second podcast. This new podcast is going to be called Trauma Chat. And notice the theme there. And in my new podcast, I'm going to be basically just giving bite-sized pieces of information for the general public to learn more about like how trauma shows up in our lives, how we might be impacted by trauma even when we don't realize it, and how to identify what traumatic experiences you have that fit into what category so you can understand how to get help with what you've been through instead of just thinking that there's something wrong with you, which is pretty much the common experience. So my new podcast, Trauma Chat, will be coming out in June 2021. I cannot wait to share it with you. For now, I have the only thing going on right now is 2 places that you can find more information about this. On Facebook, if you look up my trauma therapy coaching and consulting page, all the updates will be posted there. And on Instagram, Trauma Chat now has its own Instagram account called Trauma Chat Pod. So go find Trauma Chat on Instagram or Trauma Therapy Coaching and Consulting on Facebook to get the latest updates. Soon there will be an email list you can sign up for to be informed when it comes out and be able to, go ahead and find it right away, because one of the things that's hard when a podcast first comes out is it can be hard to find it on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, even when you know the name of it. So I hope that if you're interested in learning more about Trauma Chat, you will go to one of those places and look out for the opportunity to sign up for an email list to be informed with all the updates about Trauma Chat. And don't worry, Therapy Chat is not going anywhere. I'm just going to have 2 podcasts. So I hope you will be interested in that. Thank you, as always, for listening. I'm looking forward to more good stuff being available soon. So Zulma, with these gifts that you're speaking about, can you sort of start us off by telling our audience, what do you mean when you say inner alchemy?
I think I was going that way. I was implying that where I come from in my perception of the world is what has led me to be able to transform myself, situations, people around me, because energy is, you have to be a living energy to be able to reach another living soul or another living energy. And so the inner in inner alchemy refers to the contact with the inner self. Now, this is very, very tricky because inner self is usually interpreted as the subjective thinking or feeling. And the inner self is beyond that. It has nothing to do with the personal self, and yet it is underlies. It's like the backdrop, the background, the curtain upon which the wind blows, and you feel the vibrations without knowing what it is exactly, but you follow it. You fly with it. You swim in it. You flow with it. And this inner self is the soul, perhaps the heart vibration, even though this is also very misused these days, referring to emotions, whereas the heart is really higher intelligence. It's sentient intelligence. It is that part of the mind that knows love, that is love as a state of being. Now, in contact with this, which takes a little while, in the book, if you follow step by step, you will get there on your own. But in the groups and when I'm present, this is done through the personal touch, through the personal contact, through the energetic relationship between me and the student. And in the case, which is going to be most people, that they will do it through the book, it is reaching that stillness, that pause between the words, that pause between the thoughts. It is working body, mind, and feelings beyond themselves. It is behind that. There are many techniques to get there, and I use them all, believe me, according to the need of the person, the characteristic, their salient characteristic. For example, if they're very physical, they will need to do a lot of breath work, a lot of movement. We even use Gurdjieff movements, which are fantastic to stop the concrete mind and grasp the spaces of the higher mind. If they're very emotional, then I will use devotional, I will use mantra, I will use sound. So the people listening to me, place yourselves in that which appeals to you the most and use your own temperament and inclination to look for that still small voice. People who are mental will be able to find that in abstraction. When we meditate intuitively on, for example, virtue or quality, we get to that state of feeling what we're saying, and then it goes beyond the word. Now, all of these point to this inner self, this still inner voice, which is what alchemizes you, your personality. Because the personality is composed of thought forms and feelings and the history, the linear history, and all of this on top of the history of your parents, your ancestors, that backdrop of astrological configurations. All of this is just for the vehicle. It's just for the body-mind typology. But you are much more than that. You are what lives behind that, beyond that. You are what gives life and love to that which you do and see and learn. I may learn in the school the same thing that you do, but my interpretation is going to be different because I am different, because my soul inside of me comes from a different place, even though we touch the same frequencies together. So when touching that space, it is very easy. That is a difficult part. It is very easy to transform in the alchemical sense, not substitute one thing with another, but to actually transmute would be a better word. The personality, yourself, by creating spaces. You know, the work isn't so difficult as it appears to be, because actually you don't change anything. You just step out of the old patterns. You step out of who you think you are into what you really are. And this is what we're needing today. And this is why all of this effort in writing the book, rewriting the book, expanding and enlarging it is like a totally different book. And settling here now in Mallorca to open the school is, it's a lot of effort and work that has gone into that. And I'm 77 years old, so or young. It's been very rewarding, and I'm here in the expectant stage, waiting for the restrictions and limitations of travel and COVID to go away, so that we can begin to communicate with people at the soul level, to create this new humanity, this new perception. Because once you have been exposed to this inner self and have managed to step out of your habits and the thinking mind and the fixation with emotions and, all the importance that the emotions give you, and even the sensation that emotions produce or sensations themselves, beyond that, you can refine yourself and your vehicle, your personality, then the true work of alchemy is seen as the gold emerging from the lead, because you don't change. How are you going to change yourself? People try so desperately to change themselves in therapy, in meditation, in whatever. When they get married, they change themselves for the other or whatever. And what you have to do is be yourself in the spaces in between. And then the soul is able to reach right through and embrace that personality and give it its flavor, its frequency, its tone. You're able to sing your song in your way. Personality is the way that I present myself. I'm Latin American, so I'm very expressive. I'm very dramatic at times, very deep, emotional, and dramatic. I'm extremely dramatic. And I play with this because this is not what I am. It may be who as a label, but it's not what. And this is what I try to reach people with, and finding their what you are inside the who, and marrying those two together. This is where, it's said that the soul and the personality blend and a person becomes soul infused. So this, in a rather long-winded nutshell, is inner alchemy, this process of transmutation, of stepping away from the linear and into the concentric, holistic, resonant being that inhabits the vehicle that moves in time and space.
This is so deep, and I'm trying to digest it, but I'm thinking one question I have, and I don't know about those who are going to be listening to this if they may be more familiar, but I've had some experiences with energy work, and I hear that word transmutation or transmute often, but I don't know exactly what would be the difference between transmuting and transforming. And can you give me a little more info about that?
Sure. It's a really good question, and it's important. Transformation would be like substitution, like elaborating. Today many especially men are talking about women and empowering women. And they are doing it in a man's way. They cannot be a woman because they're not inside a woman's chemistry. They're not inside a woman's body. And it doesn't have to do with attitudes or what you do. It is, again, what you are that will create this different paradigm. Now, transformation is doing. You have to do something for it. Transmutation happens when you step out of the known and you dip into this space of silence, and all of a sudden, what you're looking at, even if it's the countryside or another person or a problem that you're having or a project that you're working on, appears differently. There's a leap into a different frequency. That would be transmutation. And when I talk of myself, transmuting myself, I would talk of, instead of let's take emotions, which is what everybody knows best, instead of being attached to the emotion and the relationship that created this emotion and what triggers it and what makes me feel, what it reminds me of, going back in time, I will go into the energy without the label and work with that energy and ride, as I described previously, that energy. For example, the energy of fear. Everybody's afraid in one way or another. The body holds a lot of fear, especially these days, because it doesn't have to do with what we put in our heads. It has to do with the sounds, the stress all around us, the pace of life, which doesn't allow you to breathe, etc. So fear is it's a fearful thing. People become afraid of fear, and that is where the harm is done. When you look at fear in the way that I just described, you sit with it, you remove the labels of what you think made you afraid. With the energy in your body, by this time it has probably gotten you in the viscera. You breathe that energy and you allow it to settle in a different way, taking away the triggering factor. Okay, I'm afraid of heights, I'm afraid of this person, I'm afraid of being hurt, etc., etc. Instead of being afraid of something, just go into that sensation of fear. You will discover that fear opens up into myriad antennas. It's like all over the place. Whereas instead of trying to be careful that you don't step on anybody's toes because they make you afraid that you will lose your control in one way or another. That outward look of fear allows you to create antennae that spread all around you. They're like feelers. So fear actually is a fantastic training in awareness if you remove the label. The same thing with anger. Anger, people say, well, no, it's not good. It's not spiritual. And, anger is interpreted as violence. Whereas anger is what moves you. It's what takes you forward. You're fed up. Some of us, you have your way of dealing with it by creating these beautiful podcasts. You want to create a better world. We're fed up with the old one. So we take that leap. It's what gives us the incentive and the energy and the leadership to go right through and break old patterns and go on a new course. So anger has its positive side. If you stop being angry at someone or because of something, and you again take it in inside. It is the heart, the heart that transmutes. It is that leap into the higher mind, the sentient mind, as I was telling you before, the intelligence that feels and knows. Then you will be able to transmute. I don't know if I made things more complicated or more simple. Tell me.
Well, I think you made it more clear.
Okay.
And but so many things you were saying were getting me thinking about so many things. Everything you've said has been so thought-provoking. I'm just like sort of looking at what I jotted down while you were talking because I wanted to go back to a couple points. And I mean,
sure.
One thing that you've said is talking about the heart and its sentience.
Yes.
And I wonder when you say that, do you mean the heart that pumps in our chest, or do you mean the heart in like when we talk about the soul where it's something that you can't touch,
I would say it's the second one. Okay. It is the faculty of loving, and you don't love when you really love. You don't love because it's going to give you something, even though many people do. They think they love, or they love ice cream or whatever. You love gratuitously. It is something which is free. Real love doesn't have a motive. You see your beautiful cat and you love it because it's just beautiful. You see a flower and you love it. You see a person and it resonates within you even before you've spoken. You can feel them and you love that. And this has got to be more recognized than what it is instead of limiting it to cause and effect. And this is the faculty of the heart. It is the heart that knows this love. It looks for similarities. It identifies discord very easily without going through the mental process of saying it's because of this. It's just a state of being, love. And that is intelligence. That awakens an intelligence in the human being that changes the way in which they function automatically. There is no, even though there's spontaneity, there is no automatic, there's no predetermined way of acting, approaching things or solving problems. It is spontaneous in that it is free. It is of the moment. It doesn't follow a script, and it doesn't go after an ulterior motive. And this is the attitude that I welcome when I'm teaching. I tell my students very clearly, if you can't love me, I can't reach you. I can't teach you. There will be all these questions and then, censorship and criticism, which are not allowing the message to go through. Instead, the old programming from what should be is present instead of what is here and now. So love and transmutation go hand in hand. Because when you step into this state of being love, things appear differently. You begin to change. And the trick, I have many tricks that I teach my students, and you'll find many of them in the book, like the alignment, alchemical alignment. These tricks will allow the person to grasp that state of being love and observe themselves from there, not as the thinking observer, but as the sentient observer. Just like you would marvel at a leaf blowing in the wind, or at this wonderful oak tree, which is flowering in front of you or whatever, it's right in front of you. It's beautiful. You listen to it, you hear it, you're there with it. It is this faculty of being with life, creation. And this is what we have to rescue. And this is why I told you in the beginning that my work isn't so easy to explain, because it relates to a state of being. I have right now many people waiting to begin with the first training, the first cohort. It's almost filled. It could be. We're leaving spaces open for people who are still applying. But the expectancy is part of the process as well.
So as I think about what you're telling me and reflecting on that you're a teacher and you are beginning this school, when you say that these people are waiting to begin, is that the school that you're talking about?
No, the school, everything is set up. We're waiting for people to be able to travel, people to be able to gather. I mean, Spain, the restrictions in Spain are really... I think they have been, anyway, stricter than in most countries. They're not allowing many people in. I've got 2 of my team members on my staff who can't get here because they can't leave. One is from the States and the other one is from Brazil. They can't leave. They can't travel. They can't get into Spain.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there's students who are coming from Australia, students who are coming from Hawaii, from New York, from different places. And of course, with the continent itself, even my English students are not able to come here, which was the easiest thing to do 2 years ago. The UK and Mallorca, where I'm based, was like a retreat in the country.
Yeah,
so we're waiting for that to subside, as it might appear to be happening.
Hopefully,
yeah,
beginning to happen. Hopefully, so. Just to, I think maybe as we come towards the end of our time together already, I mean, we're not at the end, but as we're moving toward that way, I'm thinking it makes sense can you tell our listeners how you are sharing what you do with the people you're teaching? And, so you have your book and then you have your school. And if someone who's listening to this wants to experience what you do, what are your offerings?
To school, yeah.
Yes.
Well, they would have to, we've worked hard on making the website as complete as possible. But of course, it is a website and it is linear. So the person can also ask questions. They can, we're available. My whole team is available to dialogue even by telephone for the person to find out more about what it is that we actually do. I hope I have given you a kind of a brief overview of the kind of experiences which always require a sense of trust, developing trust. Oh my God. And that is so difficult, Laura. Mm-hmm. We've all been brought up in such horrible conditions, whether they're one way horrible or another way horrible, where trust is one of the most difficult things to allow. And the human nature is basically, in essence, it is trusting and loving. But that's not coming out. So we have to work at it and elicit that so that the transmission, which is what it's all about, can happen, so that the person can get in touch with their own soul and decipher and decode what its mission is, what its purposes are, and go out there and do it. Because part of the work that we're wanting to do, I'm supported by a philanthropic organization called Lighten, which I feel privileged to be in contact with. Our concern, theirs and mine, ours here, my team, is service. So it's a 3-year program, which is kind of easily spaced so a person doesn't get overwhelmed by it lots of time, because much work happens at home. Much work happens at a distance. Much work happens in our contact, the team's contact with each participant. And the aim of all this, the purpose of all this, is to prepare people to go out there and be this alchemy, be this inner alchemy, and teach it. We're looking for leaders who are going to incorporate it in their work, in their corporations, in their schools, literally, or in the medicine. We've got a couple of doctors that are already accepted, medical doctors. So it's like, bring this into your profession and make us more humane. And this is what the purpose is. And this is why it takes 3 years, because it's not just information. I pass a lot of information like I have today, but it's basically living this. It's like what you're hearing today, I hope people can record it and listen to it again, because it's the first time a lot escapes a person. This is my books also. Just read it and then put it aside and then reread it again and then feel it and get it, grasp it, and then feel yourself feeling it. That's how you learn. And all the information is in the website. The syllabus is there. Remember, the syllabus is just the external linear version of what I do, the excuse I use. I teach you about this and that energetically. It's an excuse to do the other, which is where everything comes together, where the person begins to shine for no reason at all, just because the person is love.
Sounds beautiful. I have not finished the book. I haven't started the book yet. I haven't read the book, is what I'm trying to say. But very interested in absorbing so much of this through that. And I will definitely be diving in there. But this sounds like a beautiful opportunity for people. And are there any, I know you said apply for the school. Are there any specific parameters or requirements? Something? Yes.
Yeah. It would be the commitment to stick with the program, to teach it, to embody it, and the availability, just willing to step into the leap into this new frequency when you've kind of had it, really consciously aware, had it with being the same old self and thinking in the same old box, no matter how many frames you put it to it, no matter how much you think you're stepping out of the box, it's still there because you're creating it. So that's part of it. And the training is offered, by the way, as when I said philanthropic organization, there's full scholarship. So people don't have to be frightened by possible cost, because this would cost a fortune to actually accompany the people with the kind of care that we do. And just going a little bit back, you said you haven't started the book yet. Let me warn you that the book is presented in such a way, it is presented to the mind, and it has been skillfully. I've had the best tutors in going on again and again and again. Just like you asked me transmutation, you asked me what is consciousness, what is soul, what do you mean, what do you mean? Even though knowing what I meant, in order that it was precise. So it begins with a whole kind of dictionary in the beginning of terms, and we tried to be as precise. I say we because really I wrote it, but I didn't write it alone. It was two incredible women who helped me put it into shape. And it's very, very precise. So don't get bogged down. This is where your linear mind will come in, and then yours or whoever's listening to me or whoever reads the book. And then that linear mind has got to be at some point put aside and allow experience to take over. And there are many parts in the book where this will happen, especially in the meditations. The other is very linear, very presenting facts. But in the meditations, one is able to, I suggest people read it in their own voice and tape it and put some music background and then listen and pause when you need to pause, because there's a lot that was put into there just for you to experience yourself.
This is wonderful. I'm so curious. And so, I don't know, I think I feel hopeful that you're doing this, because, there's this feeling like of something that's missing in our world. And I mean, it's the love and the connection and the lack of humanity in terms of how we treat one another and ourselves. And, it's palpable and it's pretty concrete if you look around with the violence and the wars, and feels really hopeful when I imagine you teaching all these people how to live in this way and bring it back to our lives.
Thank you. I am very hopeful. And each time we do an interview, I get even more hopeful, because the people are hungry. The ones who actually get through and apply and have been, are interviewed are people who are hungry, just as hungry as I am to give. They are hungry to receive and to work together, understanding. And many of these people know a lot about energies and bodies and chakras and all this stuff that everybody teaches. But it doesn't. And many are also body workers and therapists and healers, and yet there is this factor which is missing, and this is what we provide. This is what we're looking to cement in and within the practices of all these professionals who will be attending is this humanity and the spirit of service, the spirit of caring for one another. We need to start caring for one another and putting aside your preferences, so many preferences and likes and dislikes and attitudes and defensiveness. And, it's so commonplace. You don't even know when you're doing it. So when we come together, we help one another by example. And little by little, things start falling away and people start seeing, feeling, like one word with a little hyphen in between, the seeing, feeling, knowing, understanding, knowing, loving with a hyphen, which is what we aim to give. This is our service. This is what we want to do.
Oh my goodness. So Zulma, can you tell our listeners where they can find your website? What's your web address?
Okay, www.Zulma Reyo, School of Consciousness.com, and mercifully abbreviated version is www.ZRSOC, the initials.com. There you will find all the information about the book, the school, some videos of me, where I speak about my dream, which is a poetic insight I had at one point, and kind of a story of how we came to be able to create the school. And I also have another website, which is zulmareyo.com. It's only my name, but the school one is perhaps the most important one to approach. It will give people the most information. The book will be available free of charge on a PDF form at the end of March. It's a bit delayed. It was supposed to be in December and has been going month by month. And the printed version, which is what most people prefer, I need to touch a book and be able to scribble on it and, use it. That will be available in May. And there's going to be a Spanish translation, which is as we speak. It is being begun. There will eventually be, although much longer, it'll take one in Portuguese, because I have a large following of people in Brazil. They're my babies. Mm-hmm. I lived there for a long time, and they're very receptive. So in these 3 languages, it will be available, but English is the one used in the school. Then we will have also trainings in Spanish when we have enough people to fill those cohorts. At the moment, it's basically English. So we're doing everything we can to make it easier for people to take that leap and join us.
Well, this is beautiful. And I'm going to share the web links that you just mentioned in the show notes for this episode. But for everyone who's listening, since this will be released in probably April or possibly May, the book should be available then, and so we'll be in good shape. So Zulma, thank you so much for being my guest on Therapy Chat today. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, Laura, for your openness. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Therapy Chat with your host, Laura Reagan, LCSWC. For more information, please visit therapychatpodcast.com.